All right, everybody, this is rapid fire round on creatine. Should you take it, should you not take it? I'm gonna cover everything you need to know in hopefully 5 minutes. So I'm gonna just crush this. Got my list of everything I wanna cover right there. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. So first and foremost, what is creatine? Creatine is a compound that is naturally occurring in the body. I always like to point that out because I think there's a negative connotation associated with it, and a lot of people think that it's some crazy chemical that was cooked up in a lab. No, guys, this is naturally occurring in our body. Supplementation just takes our creatine levels in our muscles and puts them above a level that you would normally achieve. That really helps for things like anaerobic performance, which we'll get into in a second, and might help with things like endurance, but I will talk about that in a second. So what is creatine? Creatine is a chemical. We're gonna get into the nitty-gritty biochemistry. I'm gonna tell you that creatine is a chemical, and that's as far as we're gonna go. And in the muscle, it is attached to a phosphate, and it becomes creatine phosphate or phosphocreatine. This is important because if you know anything about cellular energetics, you know that ATP is the energy currency of the cell. You probably heard that in high school biology. So what happens is ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. There's 3 phosphates on there. And when the cell needs to do something that requires energy, ATP goes in, donates a phosphate group. The energy in that high energy phosphate is used to do work, okay? But the issue is then our ATP levels start falling, okay, as we do a lot of work, okay? Creatine phosphate goes in and regenerates that ATP. It gives a phosphate to the ADP and regenerates it back into ATP, allowing us to do more work in less time. So it basically enhances our ability to recover in between these little tiny sets. So it typically works in a sub 20-second range, but it also allows us to recover in between bouts of high intensity exercise. So let's get into anaerobic versus endurance. What's it good for? What's it best for? So anaerobic, it absolutely works. It's probably one of the most research-backed athletic performance enhancing compounds on the planet. So it absolutely works, especially in the anaerobic setting, power, strength, performance, muscle mass, muscle size. It absolutely has applications there. So works. Let's talk about endurance. Does it work in endurance? The answer is maybe. So it depends on what type of endurance you're talking about. If you're going to hop on a bike and you're going to hit 65% of your VO2 max and just kind of cruise for a while, it's not going to help there. But if your endurance exercise involves bouts of higher intensity, so like soccer, right? You can run up to 10 miles in a soccer game, so there is an endurance component of soccer, but every once in a while you're sprinting, and then you're kind of jogging around, keeping with the flow of the game, and you're sprinting. So if your endurance exercise involves bouts of high intensity, then creatine is absolutely going to help here. So that's kind of the 2 case uses, absolutely in the anaerobic field, maybe in the aerobic field. So let's talk about some side effects. We got bloating and hair loss. Does creatine cause bloating? Maybe. If it does, it's probably because you're using it wrong. You're either using way too much of it, and I'll talk about dosing in a second, or you're using it at the wrong time. So I always recommend that you use creatine post-workout. Whoa, everyone uses it pre-workout. Use it post-workout because that is when your muscles are most hungry and ready to accept nutrients. So use it post-workout with your post-workout meal. That co-ingestion with other nutrients is going to force that creatine into the muscle cell, and you're going to see much higher retention of that creatine in the muscle cell compared to if you just took it at a different time. So what causes the bloating? Well, whenever you take a solute, you take that creatine chemical, it's going to attract water with it. So if that creatine molecule doesn't make its way into the muscle, you're going to get water buildup around the muscle, and that's where the bloating is coming from. So that either occurs because you're taking too much and the extra that isn't making its way into the muscle because there's literally too much creatine in there is hanging out and causing bloating, or because you're taking it at the wrong time and the muscle doesn't want to accept that creatine at that time. So take it post-workout with your post-workout meal. Boom, done. Hair loss. Does it cause hair loss? The answer is it's plausible. The mechanism behind it is plausible. There's 1 or 2 research studies showing that it might have that connection, but I would say that considering creatine is one of the most widely used supplements on this planet, and not everyone is just dropping hair left and right, I think you're good to go here. Most people will say that it does not cause hair loss, and if there is a link, that plausibility is there, the impact is going to be minor, if at all. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Let's talk about dosing. How much of this stuff do you need? So first and foremost, most people take way too much. And the other thing is loading phases. You don't need a loading phase. A lot of the companies want you to take a loading phase. They want you to take anywhere from 15 to 25 grams a day for up to 2 weeks. And the reason for this is mostly because they want you to see an impact as fast as possible, because psychologically they want you to enjoy their product and buy more of it. And two, they know that if you dump a bunch of creatine into your body, you're going to pee a lot of that out. Not that they care, but they really care is that you're using a lot of their products really quickly, and you have to go back and buy another bottle. So don't do a loading phase. The research shows that whether you do a loading phase or not, you still reach the same level of creatine in the muscle. It just takes maybe a day or two longer. Don't worry so much about it. How much per day? 5 grams is standard. You don't need more or less than 5 grams. So I would say that's basically it. A couple of companies give you 4-gram scoops. A couple of companies give you 6-gram scoops. Whatever your scoop size is, go with that. It's the easiest way to do it. Type. There's a ton of designer creatines out there, exotic forms. I'm here to tell you that creatine monohydrate either performs as well as or better than almost every other form in the market. And if there is, because I know someone is going to slap a study down there in my comments showing that there is some other exotic form that outperforms creatine monohydrate, if that is there, the benefit is not worth the huge price jump. So creatine monohydrate is the way to go. That being said, there's a ton of creatine monohydrate that comes out of China that is very, 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 very low purity. So you want to make sure that you're buying a branded form of creatine monohydrate called CreaPure. It's from Germany. It's extremely pure. So that is a branded form, meaning that you're going to find it in other companies' products. So for example, the product that I'm currently sourcing for my brand is called Clean Athlete Clean Creatine, and this is CreaPure. It's by Clean Athlete, which is a subdivision of Douglas Labs, which is a highly respected company. So the other ones I cycle between are this. Thorne Research has a CreaPure, and Jaro Formulas also has a CreaPure. It really depends on which of these mega providers is basically offering it at the best price. I then source, distribute to my customers. So anyway, this is a good one. This is what I currently have, and I will get you guys a discount to this in the description below. So check that out. So overall, that's what we got for creatine. It absolutely does work. It's one of the most research-backed performance-enhancing supplements out there, and there's really minimal side effects, especially if you use it correctly. And the applications are really powerful. There's a lot of benefit to be had with creatine, so I would recommend giving it a try if that's something you're interested in. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, comment below, and I'll make a video about it. Thanks, guys.